I was just taking a quick look at this new Goal Zero Yeti 1500. And actually, this is not a brand new product. It came out earlier this year. It's just that it was like really bad timing because Goal Zero was going through a change of ownership. And it was kind of like uncertain, like what was going to happen, if the company was even going to survive or what. So basically, it was bought by BioLite. And that was not necessarily a good thing because BioLite did try to make a power station. They had these base charge power stations, and they were like really bad, like really bad. Like when they came out, they were already like 3 years behind the competition. And then of course the other aspect of one of the reasons people buy a Goal Zero and actually pay more money to get a Goal Zero is not just you're supporting an American company, but if you had an issue with it, you could rely on the American customer support, right? And of course, all of that was just like non-existent, during this transition time. So, it was really a frustrating situation for current owners, and it really just, deterred a lot of people from making a purchase. But guess what? It's all sorted out now, and actually, it looks like somebody realized, like, no, we can't get rid of the Goal Zero brand. So they've actually decided to keep that separate from BioLite. And the team still remains in Utah, and they're still going to focus on power stations. So it's really great news. And on paper, this seems like by far the best product Goal Zero has ever had. And yes, it's expensive, but it does have a lot of good specs and features, and of course some unusual stuff, things that you won't find on the competition as well. So really, the whole point of this video is to kind of determine, should you actually consider this Goal Zero? Now, I know a lot of you probably might have been looking at Goal Zero and just scratched it off your list. Should you put it back on your list? There's Well, let's see. Let's see. Is there enough here to justify this price? So number one is the battery. Obviously, this is the 1500 model, 1505 watt hours, actually, to be exact. And now they don't quote they say more than 4,000 cycles. So obviously, it's LFP battery. They say it's going to last you more than 10 years of daily use, right? And then for the inverter, 2,000 watt. And of course, that's going to be able to power basically anything you can plug into a standard 15 amp wall outlet. And knowing Goal Zero, it's probably underrated a little bit, right? I mean, 2,000 watt, it can probably easily do that. Although they do mention, kind of disappointing, they do mention only a 3,600 watt surge. So, typically I'd like to see on a 2,000 watt inverter, I'd like to see a true 4,000 watt surge. But, still, they're basically speccing this thing for durability. Right? They're not trying to get the absolute max out of this thing. It's supposed to last a long time, right? It's supposed to be something that you can count on. And that's basically the power station in a whole, too, right? When you're looking at the design here, Goal Zero has kind of pioneered this, all aluminum case, right? Which is not just more durable than plastic. Not just does it, look nice, it just gives a higher impression of quality. But having an aluminum case is actually a good idea when you have a big box full of, stuff that's going to get hot, right? You're using this thing, you're outputting a lot of power, inputting a lot of power even. Stuff heats up, right? And aluminum has the ability to basically transfer that heat to the atmosphere, right? So there's like a passive cooling effect, in addition to the ventilation fans. So again, all of this is just good for longevity. And what's really nice is they've kind of taken this a step further. This is actually really cool. So they've added these rubber bumpers on the corners, which you might say, well, that's kind of good, in case you do kind of knock this thing into something. But guess what? The best part is you can actually remove those bumpers, peel it out basically, and it reveals like a mini rail system. And you can actually get accessories to kind of stick in there. I mean, how cool is that? And of course, one of the other things that Goal Zero has kind of been focusing on, since this is, really an outdoor adventure company, is making this thing IPX4 rated, right? So it's not like completely sealed up. It's not, you can't submerge this thing. It's not completely waterproof. It's basically splash proof, right? So if it's raining or something, if water is coming from above, it's going to be fine. You know, it's got that shingled design to the cooling vents. And then all of the ports have this cover on it, which, you know, typically I'm not a big fan of that. I don't think, you know, on their smaller Yetis, they had this like giant mud flap, this like one piece. I think that was a bit unfortunate because it basically meant no matter, you know, what you were going to plug into it, even just a little USB cable, you had to lift up the whole mud flap. This is at least a little bit better with the different sections. And what's really nice is that they flip up, they stay up, yes. But guess what? If you're concerned, like, you know, because these are like tinted covers. If you're concerned about, especially in like low light conditions, how are you going to be able to see the port? It's going to make it difficult. Well, guess what? They actually have little LED lighting under each cover. So not only is that just going to make it easy to see, but it's just kind of a cool touch, isn't it? And really just kind of goes, it kind of shows the whole design philosophy with this product, with Goal Zero in general, to really just go above and beyond the standard competition, right? Just the standard things that you expect to find on a power station. So, but, you know, anyways, you know, so all the output ports are on the front. The input ports for charging, so we'll talk about that in a second, those are all on the back side. And those do have a cover as well. But yeah, we talked about the inverter. How about, you know, your DC options? Well, guess what? If you're a fan of 12 volts, you're going to love this thing because there's actually a total of 4 12-volt outlets. And this is awesome because they do have these kind of proprietary 6mm ports. So basically, if you buy like their 12-volt fridge, or this, they have this really cool accessory called the skylight, which actually is like this light that has a telescoping pole on it that goes up to like 12 feet. I made a video on this thing. And with it basically being 12 feet up in the air, it gives you this like daytime experience at night. You know, just fantastic. So yeah, basically these accessories that they sell, they'll have the 6mm port. And that's actually kind of nice because it is a little bit more of a secure, you know, it's just a little bit better than just the car socket thing, right? But guess what? You don't got to worry. It's not like they just gave you their proprietary 12-volt outlets. No, they gave you 2 of those plus the car socket plus a 30-amp Anderson port. So yeah, you know, you got anything you want to power from 12-volt with this thing, you're going to be able to plug it in. And it's kind of the same story for USB. There's 6 USB ports, not 3 or 4, 6. And yes, they do include a 140 watt USB-C. And then for charging, it's really good specs. So yeah, you know, from AC from the wall, actually they say 1.1 hours, and that's the full charge. So 80% is going to be like really fast. And there is a switch there too, which is nice. So you can switch it from fast to low. And of course, you can kind of customize the low speed in the app as well. And yes, this model does have the app, and you're going to be able to customize a whole bunch of stuff. But guess what? You don't actually have to use the app. You can do some stuff through the screen, which I just love. You know, if you're not a fan of using the app or you don't have your phone with you, yes, you can change some of the settings through the screen as well. We'll talk about the screen a little bit more in a second. But yeah, so, you know, anyways, it's just nice to have some, you know, settings available right on the power station. And then for solar, it's not the best, but it's pretty good. You know, if you are fine with using 2 inputs. So yeah, there's the HPP input, which, you know, sounds like a proprietary input. You know, it's what Goal Zero likes to use, but guess what? It's basically just an Anderson cable. It's an Anderson cable with the positive and negative just switched a little bit. You know, typically Anderson, it's, you know, the positive and negative on left to right. This HPP port, they're basically just stacked on top of each other, and you can just detach them and rearrange them as you want. So I think I made a video on this like a long time ago on this channel somewhere, if you're curious about that. But yeah, you can buy any Anderson cable and just switch the orientation to match this HPP. So the HPP is what they call high voltage inputs. Now, you're going to be disappointed with this because the high voltage is 60 volts. That's it. But you can do 600 watts. And then if that's not enough for you, you can combine it with the low voltage input, which is the 8 millimeter, the 7909. That's 300 watts, 30 volts. So, if you do have a mix of solar panels here, you could make this work and you could get to the total of 900 watts. And then just to kind of talk about the design of this thing, obviously the exposed aluminum this thing is going to be heavier, right? This thing weighs over 50 pounds, which, you can get a lot of the plastic competitors, even 2 kilowatt hours less than that now, right? So you are going to have to pay the price a little bit with the weight here, and you still get this kind of the best design, right? Where the handles are kind of tucked into the corners of the unit so you can maintain a flat top and you can stack stuff on top. That's good. I really like how they have the screen kind of angled up, right? Because a lot of times this thing might be below your line of sight. It just makes it so much easier to see the screen, and a very big graphics on it as well. And it's kind of a cool detail with, the input and output, those arrows they have, with the numbers. And really the only downside I see with the design is the lack of a LED light. I think every power station should have that built in, but I'm sure their argument now, of course, would be go buy a little LED light from BioLite.